Hey, Future Dylan here in the edit booth. This video was originally meant to be at the end of the last tour vlog, but it turned into a huge topic on its own, so it's here as a separate video. Because it was going to be part of the vlog, I did it in portrait. Looking back at it, it really should have been in landscape, but that's what we've got. I'll know for next time. Enjoy. Alright, so tour is over. Been home for a few days now. Before I put everything fully away, I wanted to do a little run through of what the rig for this tour was, just in case anyone else is interested, or if I want to look back on it and remember what I did and how it worked. So I'm going to start with the lighting control. Laptop here running MA3 on PC with an external touchscreen. So this is a touchscreen as well, so two touchscreens, which is quite nice. During setup, I've got a lot of things to do here to get everything prepped and working, DMX tester, but during the show I'm mainly looking at these layouts that are trimmed down versions of the MA3 start show. Any groups where I'm not using that attribute group, if I've got a bunch of non-moving lights, I don't need a bunch of position groups and position phaser groups, so I get rid of those just to clean up the view. Same with colors. If I've got spots that have like a color wheel instead of color mixing, I can't really use color phasers, so I just get rid of them. And then everything else is controlled from the Nano Control 2, the fader bank, which is just going through MIDI remotes directly in MA. I'm not using any MIDI mapping software, Show Cockpit or anything like that. It's all just working in MA just fine. Although the one thing I have done custom, which I think I mentioned in a previous video, is I have a little macro that turns on the lights for any buttons that I'm using. So if I've got a MIDI remote mapped to that channel and note, then that gets turned on. These two I use to control which sequence I'm looking at. So I've got a sequence per song in the set list. So I can navigate between those easily, and then I've got go and go back buttons to actually go through the song. There's some cues there with nothing in them, just because the lights I had on that day, there was nothing I wanted to do that I couldn't do through the start show layouts during the show. So I've mainly got tempo changes, color changes, some important position changes, but mostly phases and things like that are being done from the start show layouts during the show. To actually control what's visible, each of the main start show groups, I've got a group master on the knob at the top and a dimmer intensity sequence on the fader, a bump that is just an instant on, half second off temp bump just for some hits. For anything with color mixing, I've got a bump to white, again, instant on, half second off, and then a swap for that group. So basically that turns everything else off and you just get that one thing. And typically I was running front wash, or like Fresnels or whatever was available, side if there was any, or back LED wash, and then maybe moving head washers and moving head spots, blinders, and then this one would be a position speed master to change all the position phases, a blackout button, and then this is my strobes and foggers and haze and stuff over here. So I've got a wash a strobe phaser that I can ease in on a temp fader, just a temp button for that to just bring it in suddenly and out suddenly. Actual strobes if I have them, just a strobe hit, and then the vertical foggers that we were taking with us. And then these two would be the haze blower and the haze intensity. So that's about it in terms of control. If we actually look at the rack, it's built around a DIN rail mounted MA3 on PC node. It's a 2-port node, but it unlocks a full 4096 parameters in the on PC software, which is nice. At the time I got this, at the start of this year, it was really hard to get the standard 19-inch rack mount nodes, whereas the DIN rail ones were readily available and slightly more cost effective. We've also got, if we need more physical DMX outputs, I've got a node here that goes from SACN or ArtNet to DMX. Both of these are PoE powered off the network, which is very convenient to have fewer power bricks lying around. You can see some blinking lights in there. That's the PoE switch. So that's the on-PC node, the ArtNet node, the laptop, and also a port on the back, which is actually what I was using most of the time to get DMX out. So that would go to the other lighting technician, so Christoph from Stormseeker, and that would be merged into his console. And then we wouldn't have to swap over any DMX cables or anything like that. He could just change priority or toggle off SACN input and take control or give me back control at any time, which was very convenient. We have the traditional goat for good luck. I have a headphone amp. That's not plugged in, that's just storage. If, for example, I couldn't get in-ear wireless signal at front of house, I could use that. Fortunately, I didn't need it. So that's just been sitting there the whole time, but I'm glad to have it as a backup. And then everything else there is just the power bricks for the laptop PoE switch and the monitor. Coming around the back, we've got the ins and outs basically. So we've got the cables going to the monitor, we've got power, Trucon in and out, we've got the DMX, which I didn't use because I was using SACN all the time, but still good to have, and the network. These labels were kindly printed by Christoph during the tour. I didn't start with those, and they are a nice bit of bling. I do have some spare power sockets on the inside here, but they're very hard to reach. It would be nice if you could get a unit like this that had some on the inside and some on the outside, but I'm not sure if that's available. Anyway, it would be nice to have just a courtesy outlet for charging a phone or something like that. We also have in the lids is where I kept the cables. I have the XLR cable that I would use with the headphone amp to get the click in my ears if the wireless in-ears weren't working for whatever reason. And I think that's it for the rack. So next we've got the backpack, which primarily contains the laptop, but I've also got just the rest of keeping myself alive and well. I've got a hat on the outside that I didn't use the whole tour, but that is really useful for festival shows during the summer, so it tends to live there. The gloves I did use a lot, just to try and keep my hands clean before I'm using touchscreens mainly. We've got clipboard, which sometimes has a set list in it. It didn't on this tour, so it was just some blank paper if I needed to scribble. We've got the tour laminate. We've got a bunch of small bits and bobs in the top pocket, sunglasses, USB drives, pens, main pocket, jacket, rain jacket, book. I did use the rain jacket once, I think, and I did use the book once, but I'm not sure the book was worthwhile lugging a hardback around all that time. And we've got the in-ears. These are not like lab molded custom in-ears, but they're instant like silicon set in-ears that were made by ProTech in Perth, Australia. They've been really good compared to custom molded, like lab molded ones. They're cheaper basically and still very effective. They worked really well. Got a phone charger in here, spare charger for the laptop if I need to use it away from the rack for any reason. Reading light if I need a bit of light in front of house to read something or see what I'm doing. Didn't need that on this tour. I have used it on previous shows if I've got printed notes, but with the song sequences pre-set into the console, that's less necessary, so this might be something I can leave behind in future if I'm bringing the console. And headlamp, very useful. Dark stages or moving things around in the trailer at night or things like that. Absolutely essential. I've got some spare masks just in case anyone's coughing and spluttering. Got some Tic Tacs. Alright, that's it for the bag. The last thing to talk about is the Pelican. This mainly has solutions for problems I hope not to have. So a lot of this stuff doesn't get used regularly, and that's okay. We've got a bunch of audio adapters primarily, Sharpie, lighter, a drum key, but mainly audio adapters, which I very rarely need. I've got a talkback mic. I've only used this once so far actually, but it worked well. It's the relatively new SE V7 push-to-talk, which is quite convenient for a talkback mic. We've got an SM58, which Nicholas was using as his vocal mic because he wasn't keen on the sound of the Sennheiser he was using previously. We've got the things shaped like XLR connectors for solving problems. So we've got adapters between 3 and 5 pin DMX in both directions. Got some terminators in 3 and 5 pin. Got some pin to pin or socket to socket adapters for XLR. And then I've got a Sound Tools XLR sniffer, which I haven't needed to use yet, and I'm very glad of that. Got a high-vis vest if we're moving around in truckland. Got a spare microfiber cloth for cleaning things. Got some spare batteries. We go through so many batteries, it's ridiculous. We're trying to move to more rechargeable batteries, and that has really highlighted how many batteries we have in use at any one time. There are probably nearly 30 batteries involved in the production at any one time, and that's too many to be throwing them away all the time. Anyway, we've got some paper towel. We have a soldering iron, gas powered. I think I've only used this at a show once, and I'm glad I had it. Got a nice torch. Again, I don't use this super often because of the headlamp. We have a microfiber cloth dedicated to screen cleaning and some screen cleaning solution, which is just white vinegar and water. Also good for cleaning hands before you're working on a touchscreen, although it does dry your skin out a bit. Got some isopropyl alcohol for cleaning sticky tape residues or anything like that. We have an adapter from Seaform to Schuko. We've had some stages in the past where all of their outlets on their power distro are Seaform connectors, and they didn't have any Schuko that we could connect our gear to, so now I bring one of these just in case, and I have only used it once. Leatherman SOG brand. This has been really good, had this basically forever. An inspection mirror, almost like a dentist mirror, but on an extendable stick so you can look behind things. Best used in combination with a bright light from a torch, for example. We've got a multimeter. This is pretty frequently useful. It's not a particularly fancy one, but it does the job. Got a set of bits. There's some loose, which means the case probably got dropped at some point. We've got a pair of walkie-talkies in the free, no license required band. I mainly got these for festivals where we're more spread out, and I don't think we've used them yet, but they're there if we need them at some point. I have a set of socket bits, nice portable set. I've only used it a couple of times so far, but it's been pretty handy. Gaffer tape, and then the agglomeration of other smaller tapes, so electrical tape in a couple of colours, spike tape, Teflon tape, and some double-sided sticky tape. And then down the far end, we've got hand tools, basically. Saw, cable strippers. They're okay, they work. They're just not great. I'd prefer a nice pair of cable strippers. Snap-off knife with a couple of blades in it. A file, which is way too big for this case, but I carry this in case, especially road cases, get dinged up and end up with a sharp corner on them. This can smooth them out so they're not a hazard to people's hands or clothing or anything else. A larger screwdriver which doubles as, a small pry bar if necessary. A couple of adjustable spanners, a couple of pairs of pliers, needle nose and normal lineman style. A set of Allen keys, some side cutters. These are okay. They're not, the jaws are not as hard as I would like, so they are getting damaged pretty quickly. But they are very comfortable to use, so can't complain too much. We've got a tape measure, and something we do use almost every show, which is this custom-made hammer. It's just cut off the end of the handle so that it fits in the case better, which is for assembling and disassembling truss pin connections. And then in the lid, we've got the foam seat, which sits on the top of the case and is perfect height to sit on. So if there's not a convenient chair at front of house, or I need to be a bit lower than the chair that's available or whatever, that's very handy. There's some things that are less frequently used, and there's some things that are basically never used, but I wouldn't want to be without them.
Future Dylan here again.
Since I recorded that 2 months ago, I have removed quite a few things from the case. We had a show at the Kufa a couple of weeks ago. I used the same setup, worked really well. Looking forward to doing some more shows in 2026. I hope you've all had a wonderful year and have a happy new year.